Thanks to the Falcons, it's officially an Applebee's Pick 6 Monday this football season. A Pick 6 during any NFL Sunday game will unlock 6 free boneless wings the next day on Monday at Applebee's for both dine-in and to go. Head to your local Applebee's today and be sure to say your friends at the happy hour sent you.
And Drew Lock.
That's right.
Drew Lock definitely sent you.
Drew Lock brought you here. Weekend Warriors. We kick things off with Devon Achane here, guys.
By the way, the Falcons defense, not on a list, but the Falcons defense was a weekend warrior. Yeah. For those that play in leagues where you have defenses, they were amazing.
They got you a lot of points. Matthew, 31 fantasy points and an RB3 finish as it stands right now for Devon Achane.
First Miami running back with 120 rushing yards and 70 or more receiving yards since Ronnie Brown. In 2007.
The Wildcat offense.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, just with Jalen Waddle out, Tirico a little bit banged up, they leaned on Devon Achane as the centerpiece of this offense. And since week 8, he's been the third best running back in fantasy football. Big touchdown run to seal this for them as well. Just, again, the speed, the consistency that they're using him between the tackles. And obviously, he's a big part of the passing game, Jay.
Yep, absolutely. And that Dolphins offense continues to look right, even though Jalen Waddle missed, and the fact that they've been banged up on the offensive line. Like, Tua quietly, when he's been out there, has been very solid. And I thought that the Niners' defense was much improved against the Rams, but they're still dealing with injuries. And Achane, I mean, we talked about it before the season. Like, Achane had scope to be the number one player in fantasy. Like, he has that type of upside, and he kind of played to that level yesterday.
Yeah, they're on the road to Cleveland next week, and so you figure they'll lean on Achane quite a bit. Tua in the cold weather on the road.
I think they'll be right. If it's DTR, they'll be
yeah,
right.
That's a good point.
A favorite of the show, Jay, makes the listen. Brian Thomas Jr., 9 catches, 132 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. Doesn't matter who's under center. BTJ's been phenomenal.
Yeah, he has a rapport with Mac Jones, which is not something
really
that many people can say over the journey. But the key here, too, is just 13 targets. He's earning targets. He's been a top 4 wide receiver in fantasy the past month. And I know you guys disagree because you don't like Brian Thomas Jr., but this guy, I think, is a top 10 wide receiver going into drafts next year. And it would not be surprising at all if he ends as a top 5 wide receiver with the season that he has next year.
He is nothing. He's been nothing short of phenomenal since week 13. He's the 4th best wide receiver in fantasy. 4th straight game with 10 or more targets. So you're right. I mean, there is a connection there with Mac Jones, and in a season in which a lot has gone wrong for the Jaguars, they have found something special in Brian Thomas Jr. We talked on Fantasy Football pregame, Connor, about James Cook. We weren't worried about it. James Cook was part of our touchdown parlay, which we cashed, by the way. Happy about that. We had a 4-touchdown parlay on Fantasy Football pregame. James Cook was part of it. He cashes that. But the question that came up during the show was, hey, are we worried about James Cook because Josh Allen last week just went nuclear? But no, massive part of this offense.
Yeah, and he can hit the big play, which is what you love, and he can get you multiple touchdowns. He's had great touchdown equity all season. But, yeah, you get a little bit of a not come back to earth, but more of a bottom-out game from Josh Allen, and James Cook gets the benefit from that.
Josh wasn't great yesterday. He threw another pick that was dropped and also hurt his hand, lost all feeling in it, and then threw it a deep ball that was so far off the camera couldn't track it. So it seemed, he said it was fine, his feeling was restored in his hand, but, I mean, the Jets' defense looks a bit banged up right now. Sauce Gardner leaves the hamstring, Quentin Williams out, so pretty favorable matchup for Cook and Allen to get right and potentially, secure the MVP.
Yeah, he just plays a hard brand of football, Josh Allen. Like, these moments of being really banged up are naturally going to happen.
Also, always just seems to struggle against the Patriots and the Jets, whatever the season, whatever the time.
Yeah. While we're on this game, really quickly, one of the conversations that we were having off screen was like, do you think Mayo saved his job with this? Just because
the Patriots, a lot.
Yeah. I mean, even though the Patriots lost, they showed up, and they had the Bills went into this game 14-point favorites.
Yeah. And they were in trouble for a while.
For a long time.
Yeah, at one point the Patriots got into like plus 120 on the money line when they're up 14-0. It's like, oh my God, are the Patriots actually going to beat the Bills? And then eventually order was restored.
I think it was a big game for Mayo, though. I really do. I know he's under a lot of heat right now in that market.
Understandably so. 120 total yards in 3 of the past 4 for James Dalvin Cook.
How about Deebo Samuel making the list, guys? There hasn't been many weekend warrior moments for Deebo Samuel, but he gets 9 targets. He catches 7 of them, 96 yards and a touchdown. He also had 25 rushing yards, Matthew.
He also looked like Deebo Samuel. Like he was shaking guys off of his leg, like he was making physical plays, like they used him in the backfield a little bit. Patrick Taylor, you got nothing out of him as well. And so in a season, the 49ers have been officially eliminated from the playoffs, but it was good to see Deebo back to, okay, oh yeah, right, that's the guy we remember. It was his best fantasy game since week 14 of last season. 24% target share for Deebo in this one as well. Kittle had a huge game. The 49ers offense kind of happened what we thought was they weren't really that effective running the ball. Taylor didn't get much run. The Dolphins have a good run defense, and so Purdy had to throw it, and it was Deebo, it was Kittle, it was a little bit of Jennings, but really nice game for Deebo Samuel, who, by the way, next week gets the Detroit Lions at home. Secondary is obviously beat up for Detroit.
Pass funnel for sure.
Yeah. I think Deebo Samuel, who's gone from fantasy non-entity 24 hours ago, now I think is probably someone you can start against Detroit. If he's going to get this type of workload, again, you don't feel great about it because it's just one game. But to your point, Matthew, the key is just that physically he looked like Deebo Samuel. And that was the biggest concern, that like maybe this guy who has taken a ton of hits over the journey, he's dealt with a lot of injuries, maybe he's just done. Like maybe he just didn't have that explosiveness, but he looked himself yesterday, which is the key.
Our final one here, Jay, Jerome Ford, who I believe was on the love list this week, Matthew, if I remember correctly. Jerome Ford, obviously Nick Chubb dealing with the broken foot. Jerome Ford gets over 24 fantasy points. He's in the top 10 running backs right now, and plenty of volume both through the air and on the ground. Yeah,
the good thing with Jerome Ford now is that that's just entirely his backfield with Nick Chubb gone, and he's not beholden to game script. Now, I don't think the Browns are going to have a game script where they're really going to run the ball, but it doesn't matter because he's getting these dump-off passes from DTR, who does like to dump the ball off. So Jerome Ford, I think he'll be a viable RB2 type next week against the Dolphins.
Yeah, by the way, Deontay Foreman fumbles on the goal line as well. So
they haven't wanted to play him anyway.
Right, exactly. So any concern that Ford might lose some playing time, I think, dissipated once Foreman fumbled on the goal line there. Back-to-back games now with 100 total yards for Jerome Ford, averaging over 21 fantasy points during that stretch. You mentioned the home game against Miami next week. Yes, between the dump-offs and just the workload there, Ford is going to be a factor next week in the fantasy finals. By the way, let's hear it for DTR, which is like this. We thought the two guys we thought you could start in Cleveland were Jerome Ford and David Njoku, who caught 8 balls and had a very good, solid game for a tight end. So let's hear it for DTR getting the ball to those two guys. No, he was awful.
Yeah,
by the way,
let's kind of hear it.
No, but you know what I mean. Like
let's hear some faint whispers.
Yeah, exactly.
And if
Sorry,
you
I'm
bet the Browns
mesmerized by
team total under 18.5, you also thank DTR.
Yeah, DTR did what he was supposed to do. DTR did what he was supposed to do: get the ball to Ford and Njoku, be terrible the rest of the way, and make the Cincinnati Bengals defense viable.
That game was stunningly alive in the fourth quarter. It looked like they'd scored a touchdown to make it 17-13. I was like, what the hell's going on here? But
that was just the Browns defense played well.
Myles Garrett is still, I think, the best defensive player.
Ridiculous. And the Bengals actually didn't even. I don't want to say they didn't deserve to win that game, but Burrow's just a magician.
Yeah.
Burrow just made
touchdown.
Just ridiculous. There were just a couple of different plays that he made. The falling touchdown being one of them as well. But just but I am rooting hard for the Bengals to get into the playoffs. I want Joe Burrow in the playoffs. America is. Beat the Broncos. If they beat the Broncos, this is what we need. We need them to beat the Broncos on Saturday, the Bengals, and then we need the Chiefs. That's the problem.
Carson Wentz is the issue.
I know. But come on, Carson Wentz. You were once a top 2 pick. You were once an MVP candidate.
He's going to win MVP. He's going to win MVP if he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.